Everyone,
Alright.
welcome to the Pride in Action Network story. My name is Long. I'm one of the International Student Engagement Lead Officer. And today we have the pleasure to speak to Dr. Mohammad Taha. Hi, Doctor. How are you doing today?
Fantastic. It's a pretty beautiful day in Melbourne today, so life's pretty good.
That's
Yeah, how are
wonderful.
you?
Yeah, I'm doing great. Life couldn't be better.
Terrific.
To begin, can you tell us something about yourself and what you do?
Um, so much. Okay, I'm gonna start with the simple stuff. My
Yeah.
name is Mohammed. Um, about me, I'm a lot of things. I would say that I am a queer person of color, a non-binary queer person of color under the trans umbrella. That's identity-wise. In
Mhm.
terms of what I do, I'm a researcher at the School of Engineering, uh, and to be more precise, electrical and electronics engineering. I work with material science primarily, like trying to kind of shift the blocks of how we put things together to get interesting properties. I look into smart materials and how we integrate them into like current existing structures and how to eliminate waste and hate, as well as integrate all those materials into flexible and wearable electronics.
Mhm.
Yeah, so that's my research interest. Apart from that, I'm uh, a lifelong advocate for queer inclusion,
Yeah.
starting from back in my day at Unimel years and years ago,
Yeah.
where I'm not sure if it's still around. The club, my friends and I started a club called Quest. That's
Mhm.
Queers in Engineering, Science and Technology. I'm not sure if it's still around. I hope it is. But yeah, that was the first like grassroots thing that we
Mhm.
looked at because we recognized even then that within
Mhm.
STEM there is like a lacking in queer representation and
Mhm.
like just like queer lives in general. Um, and yeah, outside that, I like fun fact about me, I teach
Mhm.
spin class at the gym.
Oh, wow.
Um, yeah, I do a lot of writing. I'm writing
Uh-huh.
my second or third book currently.
Wow.
This is all fiction. And yeah, I'm also working on a few scripts. I might be making a short film uh, soon-ish. So yeah,
Mhm.
I have a lot of things going on because I try and keep busy. Um,
Mhm.
I, I try not to be bored because yeah, being idle at least is my own worst enemy. I can't be idle. I always have to
Mhm.
be doing stuff, and this is why COVID kind of yeah, like it's a pretty challenging time for a lot of people. But like yeah,
Yeah.
personally, it's been quite a challenge to yeah stay at home for a while. Yeah,
Yes.
that's a little blurb about me, I think. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, that's wonderful. You're doing so much. In what you just said, you mentioned that you started, your roads advocacy, like started way back from, like you being a student in college. So, what is your experience like as a queer student of color at an education institution in Australia?
That is a very big question. It's a very challenging question. But to be honest, the uh, the major thing that affects me as a queer person of color is the person of color aspect
Mm-hmm.
to life.
Mm-hmm.
So that kind of, at least from my personal experience, that affects my life the most. My
Yeah.
in terms of my queerness, have always been um, like uncompromising when it comes to how I present myself and who I am. Because
Mm-hmm.
I've never had like because I kind of went through my queer journey and my coming out on my own on a personal level. So I had to come out to myself first, and that took quite a lot of thinking. And I didn't know that mainstream society didn't accept queerness until way later in life. So after I was already kind of like cemented who I am, I kind of start to engage with people, and then I realized that it is an issue for some people when you interact with them. When it comes to higher education, especially in engineering, engineering is a very challenging space because it has like less and less, I think now, but it has like this macho, like white cis straight man culture, which is whether I doubt that it is by design, but I think it's like by consequence, and it happens a lot. So when you have that binary or like that kind of one view of the world dominance, then you're gonna have like a lot of things going wrong. So you get like sometimes lack of understanding and that kind of stuff. But I think from my experience, it is very rare, at least for me, where any lack of acceptance comes from real prejudice. Most of the time, I just like heavy lack of understanding sometimes. For like people who they have never seen anything like me. And as much as I like to empathize, that is of no consequence to me, if that makes sense. Because like I'm trying to live my life, and then you have people who like kind of prevent you from moving forward because they have not grown as much, or like they haven't thought about things as much. So I think it is a lot of challenge in that area. But yeah, I think race really comes into it, because like it is very confronting for someone named Mohammad to look like me and speak like me, and like sometimes people ask me like odd questions, try and pin me down to figure out why I sound the way I sound and why I look the way I look. And I rarely give people a satisfying answer, because like when people ask their questions with the intention of learning and getting to know you, that's perfectly fine. But when people ask those questions as interrogation that doesn't come from acceptance, but comes from like, do you actually belong here kind of interrogation, those kind of questions I rarely answer, or like even dignify sometimes. I just kind of like brush it off and kind of move on, get on with the job and what I'm trying to do in life. Yeah. And I think and as you progress, one of the things like I realized like later in life as I was progressing through higher education is the sooner you kind of get on board with who you are and your core values, the better you're going to perform. So I found that my own performance, there's a direct correlation between how well I did and how comfortable I was in presenting who I am at university, like, you know, at work, like during all the different steps in my life. So the closer you are to your true self and your true representation, the better you function, because then you're not stressing, you don't have any secrets, you're not hiding anything. And then you're focused on something that everyone else is already focusing on, which is to get ahead, to, like, you know what I mean, like to do well, and like, you know, to be the best at your education, or at least to compete within your education and to compete in life. So that's I hope that answers your questions. Sometimes I kind of tend to kind of go around and then don't answer the question.
Thank you so much for sharing your experience. Those are like really valuable words, and like I can feel like there's a lot of words of wisdom in there. So like you mentioned like multiple challenges that you have faced working in STEM. So what other challenges and barriers that, you know, like queer people face while working in the STEM field?
The main thing that I think that it doesn't sound fair, and it doesn't sound like I should say it, but I am going to say it. You can't just do well. You have to be twice as good as your peer. If you want the same, like amount of rights, or if you want the same space as your peer, whether it is university or even in the workplace, you do need to be so much better. I mean, on paper, and that's a true thing. And you can't. I understand the self-care aspect to it. Sometimes you need to recharge, and you need to like, you're struggling with identity, and you're struggling with all those things, as well as trying to kind of get ahead. So it's one of those things that if you can sometimes kind of step away from it and then come back when you're ready, do it, that kind of stuff. Or but you do need to keep mindful of the level of performance that is required.
Yes.
And I think we all, like anyone who kind of goes into Melbourne has like that kind of understanding that you do need to work hard, and you do need to be good at what you do. And even doubly so, if you are queer, or if you are a queer person of color, you do need to kind of work hard, and you need to take into account the unconscious bias that might exist. Personally, like I've since I started in the school, there has been just tremendous respect from a lot of people. Like people just like kind of click into what I'm about. I'm about the work. When I am within, like when I'm in the school, I'm there to do my research. I'm there to do like all the core science things I would like to do. And despite my appearance, people like none of my coworkers ever comment on my like appearance, or like kind of like they don't make my identity like a topic of conversation, because like, you know, like, it's like, it's one of those things that people have like that kind of respect, and it's very important to me, because it's very important to me for people to like not like interrogate who I am, because I love talking science with like with anyone. If I see someone in the lab doing something, I will ask them what they're working on, just because like I am curious in that way. But like that's one of the things that sometimes I feel as a student you might need to establish, but not so much when kind of you grow out of that like student experience, or like the further you go. You do need to establish those boundaries, that these are the topics of discussion. Because I had someone in the past who asked me why I look like this, and again, I know why people ask questions like that, and when you're an outsider most of your life, or you're in the receiving like end of prejudice, you know a leading question. You know a question that is not said with the intention. There's no good intention behind that question, and there was probably a follow-up that is going to be like almost hurtful. So I was like, I always shut those questions down, and actually like kind of on that day, I set the boundaries. I was like, you do not discuss my appearance with me, otherwise I'm just going to go to your boss or your supervisor. And I know that might not be always the best course of action, but from experience, I found that people would get away with as much as you allow them to, and you are protected. There is policy, and I always say that policy protects people. When you have good policy, you can call people on it. You'd be like, this, we agreed to mutual respect, and you are in breach of this mutual respect that we agreed upon. And it's not something that you kind of, it's not your duty to implement, it's their duty to adhere to, kind of thing. So that's one of the challenges that kind of like set the boundaries, know the boundaries, and just like even in terms of challenges of like even like pressure to come out a certain way, because not everyone looks, not everyone's identity is like a flamboyant identity, and like not everyone like, you know, like looks visibly queer, and I feel that it's not fair to make the assumption either way, because some people, for them, coming out is just having a comfortable conversation at work without having to kind of think if they're going to be judged, or if they're going to have to like justify kind of where they spend the weekend, and lie about what they did with their free time, or seeing their partner, and all that kind of stuff. That sometimes that is a type of coming out, and we need to respect all of that spectrum, because sometimes we kind of like get caught up. We get caught up in the appearance part of it, and then we forget that coming out sometimes. People want to be out at work, for example. They want to have equal opportunity. They want to be able to, you know, apply for a job. They want to be, you know what I mean? They want to have like a nice life, and not necessarily like a, you know, look like, mind me saying, look the part, because there is no specific look for queerness. Everyone kind of have like their own their own thing, and that's why it's an umbrella. I use the word queer as an umbrella term just because that's how I view the community. And yeah, so it's very important to kind of like think about where you come from and what your queerness means to you and what you're going to do with it, and then like, establish those boundaries early on, and yeah, make sure that like when you compromise, you know that you are making a compromise, and you're not compromising because other people are pressuring you to compromise against your better judgment or against your gut feeling or against your will, because that's when we're kind of stepping into that trespassing and prejudice that is actually not allowed in any policy anywhere. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes. Thank you so much for answering that question. So in that answer, you mentioned, like equal opportunity and policies, which are some very positive changes. So what are other, like positive changes for queer people who's working in science that you have noticed in recent years?
Actually, one of the most positive things that I noticed recently in STEM, this is actually an experience I have had personally. Last year, before I joined Queers in Science, they held the first like symposium that was just highlighting queer people in STEM, and that's just never something that has never happened in Australia, and it's one of those things that you don't know how much it means and its impact on you personally until it happens. And then when we are all there, that's just like a part of community that we've never experienced. Like, because like normally queer people in STEM, they're kind of like secluded, like they're separated. Everyone is like queer in their own little pocket. And then like, it's very rare that we sit in the same room in that magnitude. And the highlight was like queers in STEM excellence, their research and all the good stuff they've been doing and the advocacy and all kinds of stuff. So that's I think that was what is just like one of the greatest things that happened recently. And I think it was just like born to the whole maturity of society, after the marriage equality debate and all that stuff. And even before, like, because the groundwork for all this stuff is kind of put down before it happens, years and years before it happens, because change doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it does, but most of the time it is the relentless persistence of like people who are not satisfied with the status quo. And I always tell people that if you are happy with the way things are, it's because you are privileged and because you benefit from it. And you need to understand that not everyone is in the same position. Like, I mean, like if and we even like as people in STEM, it should all be striving for improvement. This idea that things are fine is like, to me at least, I find it unacceptable. Nothing is complete. Like everything is up for revisit, whether it's policy, whether it's science, whether it's anything we can rehash and rediscuss to make it better. And I think even if you're not for your own benefit, it's for the benefit of other people who are not captured within the current like settings. And nothing is perfect. Like, I mean, like that's what I mean. Like there's always someone we're missing when we do these things, when we do inclusion, or like when we kind of like build any structure, we even not intentionally, we forget people, or like people like have more complex circumstances, and we actually need to have the open-mindedness and flexibility and not look at change as an attack personally, because I feel sometimes that there's this resistance to change because it almost feels that you want to like destabilize, when in reality you just want to kind of like bring in more people to the fold. And we in STEM or any field, we can only benefit from bringing more people into the fold, because you have like that like uniqueness and that vision that comes from the individuality of like what makes a person, because not two people are the same, and we need to like accept that. And it's one of those things that I kind of hold in great regard. And I like, there is a lot of positive work, and I feel that we're moving more towards just like a more complex policy that kind of takes into account this stuff. But like we always, I'm a big advocate of like tackling a problem from multiple angles. So you need to go from the top down and from bottom up. You can't just start from one location, because you need an intermediate solution. I'm going to use the metro. I love using this example. It's a very good example. The metro project in Melbourne is a good example of like a good policy, because you have the overarching end product of the metro project, which is to kind of decongest all the traffic within the city loop. That's the end point. That's the end product. But then in the meanwhile, you have all these multiple projects that are cultural projects that all the art projects that's going on. They have the installations and all that stuff for the intermediate 10 years. We're doing this because that's where actual real change is like. We have 10 years of people who are going through STEM, people who are going through the university or going through society, who don't benefit from the end product 10 or 20 years from now. And, we don't want to stand 20 years from now and then wish that we had more representation. We need to be mindful is in the idea that whatever is on the other side of this 10, 20 years, we are going to need more representation, regardless of what the outcome is. We are still lacking in that area. So that's kind of the kind of foresight when it comes to inclusion is quite important in this space.
Yes, that's wonderful. And so you mentioned about Queer in Science, and you are part of Queer in Science. Can you tell us more about your initiative, the initiative and your position?
Okay. It's not it was started by my co-chair, the founder of Queer in Science, Sarah Stevenson, works at MCRI. She's a terrific researcher, and there's so many people who founded this great initiative because there's a need for it outside all the the universities and outside professional workplaces, because we're not just in academia. Queer people in STEM exist across a spectrum, and they exist everywhere. So it started here in Victoria, and I joined them late last year. And then I'm currently the co-chair of Victoria with Sarah, and we do a bunch of activities. We run events all the time, but the moral of Queers in Science is retention. We can't retain queer people in STEM. They come in, and it's when it's hostile, they just leave, and then we're missing out on all these people who come in STEM and not saying. So we do need more support for them, and we need more support for them now. And this is where Queers in Science sits. We sit around the representation, the visibility, the advocacy, and the education parts of being queer in STEM. And then most recently, we also added another pillar to just deal with intersectionality, because we understand that so many people have compounding effects that not only affects their performance, but just actually affects their life trajectory. Because if you look at disadvantage doesn't start just at the doors of institutes or a workplace. It starts from a very young age, the disenfranchisement with education, and then if you have people from different races or people with low socioeconomic backgrounds, and then you have trans people who if you are transitioning, for example, during university, and what that experience is going to affect your performance. Being a human being or being a queer person is a very complicated thing, and we need in intersectionality, we need an approach that prioritizes people who are fall through the cracks, and they're not included in any other category, because they're part of so many communities, and they just manage to be in between. They fall through the cracks, and we are kind of trying to have a more holistic, from the get-go, from the start of the organization. We want to have a more holistic, leave no one behind approach, because if you don't kind of defend everyone, you go against the own values you set for yourself. When you say we want diversity, but we can't say we want diversity only when it's convenient, or only when it's not complex, or only when it works in a certain setting. It's a big statement, and I feel initiatives Queers in Science or Pride in Action, it is a statement and a task, and it is our job to make sure that we are honest, and we keep ourselves honest to the statement that we made. When we have like a Pride in Action network, there is a statement is that we want diversity and we want to include everyone. And then we can't, you know what I mean? And then once you say it once, because we have it written down in Queers in Science, we have our pillars. And every time we run any event or when we do anything, we bring it back to those pillars and we check if we've done all the things that we said we're going to do. And you're not always supposed to get it right, but it is an expectation that you are going to try. And if you are trying, you're always going to improve. Like no way you don't improve. Like if you're constantly trying to be better, you will always be better, or even like approach it a little bit. So that's what I think. That's what Queers, at least that's what Queers in Science is to me. But I guess that's the point of like this organization, and that's the point of having networks with a lot of people on them, because everyone comes in, they have their own ideas and they have their own, you know, like they have their own passion. And then when you have like so many people with so much passion, you end up with like great vision. And that's what we're trying to encourage. We want people to come in and tell us what they're passionate about, tell us what they want, what they like, and then we'll try our best to do it. And that's Queers in Science. All right.
Yes, that's incredible. Like when we move forward as a community. Like we move forward together and always strive for better. That's incredible. So you mentioned about like, you know, like moving forward. What would you hope to happen? Like changes that you hope to happen in the future for the queer and science community?
So many things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna start with the like the first thing that comes to my mind. It's actually like more representation for like queer people of color in leadership, because we have like a lot of people of color going into STEM in the process, but then as you progress in seniority and in leadership, that you have less and less. And again, and that is a very complicated issue with a lot of reasons. And that's because that's how you ensure, that's how you maintain diversity. When your diversity propagates into leadership, it means that your policy is working. It means that whatever you're doing now is actually working. You have generations and generations of people who are like kind of making it through the ranks and getting ahead and going to those leadership positions. Because if your policy doesn't do that, it means there's something broken in the policy. Whether it is like, because everything like kind of needs fixing, because you need more, for example, when you're talking about like opportunity and scholarships and that kind of stuff, you need scholarships that are targeted towards like queer people in STEM. And then within that, you also need to kind of consider the other aspects, you know, like, you know, being intersex, you need to consider race, you need to consider like being indigenous, you need to consider like all these different ability, and you need to consider like you know, income and all that stuff, all the complexities that come on top of queerness that makes so many people unable to pursue their dreams. And I think that's what I want to see. I want to see people who have dreams and people who want to do something to be able to do it. And that's I'd be lying to you if I tell you that that's the case now. You have so many people who have they need to morph and change their dreams, and not because they change what they want. It's just because by sheer of impossibility of structures for them to go in, or like for them to do it. And that's I think that is the primary thing that I want to see. And again, I want to see like the fluid kind of movement of diversity through the ranks and through policy and through leadership, until one day kind of we don't have to even like mention it, you know, I mean, like, because we look around the room and we have such representation that every issue we would bring to the table would have everyone's input on it, because everyone is already here. And if someone is not here, we go and consult with them and that kind of stuff. I think we're a fair bit away, but you know, aim high, and maybe we'll get there.
Yes. Well, representation means so much. Like, you know, like as a young student, like when we see someone, like we see an idol, and one day that could be us too. Like it means so much for representation. And for the last question is like last question is, what would be your advice for any queer students who are planning on having, you know, like their career in STEM in science?
Ah, just my advice is always simple with these things.
Yeah.
Just be excellent, try your best
Hmm.
and a little bit more.
Yeah.
Uh, Also, like you have to be relentless. If you want
Hmm.
something, if you really, really want it, you have to be like, you have to have both the flexibility and
Hmm.
the stubbornness to go for it. Because
Yeah.
no one, again, like the reality of the situation, no one's going to give you stuff. Like this is not the world we live in. This is not the
Yeah.
world, like, you know what I mean? Like there's no like crisis passage. You have to uh, like fight for your place in the
Hmm.
world.
Yeah.
Again, I wish. Give me a second. Yep. Yeah. So you have to fight for your place in the world, and you need to start with persistence. If you're a persistent person
Hmm.
who is capable and who's willing to learn,
Yeah.
you'll go far. Because like, okay, there's this thing that sometimes students have in their mind that they're not smart enough or they can't do something. There is nothing in this world that you cannot learn. It doesn't matter how
Hmm.
complicated it is.
Yeah.
You just need to kind of like grab at it the right way, and then you have to like stay on it until you actually learn it.
Hmm.
You need to always if you want to do it,
Yeah.
go for it, and then just stay on it until it's done.
Yeah.
The second you stop growing, the second you stop learning,
Yeah.
is, in my opinion, when you fail, not just like as a queer person, but like as a person in general.
Mm.
But like I said, like everything I'm saying is outside the self-care stuff. So if
Yeah.
you need to stop and kind of like take stock and take some time off and do it, because learning how to recharge is also a very important
Mm.
thing to learn as a student. I know how to recharge. Like
Yeah.
I have like my ritual on Saturdays. Like I
Yeah.
go for my like weekly, like my weekly long run. So I just like
Hmm.
run for like 2 hours or something like that,
Wow.
and then I
Yeah.
would just like do some reading. I mean, like I know what I
Hmm.
need to do for me to be my best, and
Hmm.
sometimes you need to try a few things before you find that,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter what like battle or like what's ahead.
Hmm.
Um, if you're if you know when to stop and like fill the car with gas, and when to kind of drive fast and when to slow down, you'll get there. But like persistence. Don't be discouraged just because the world is a little bit mean. Sometimes
Yeah.
the world is a little bit mean. Sometimes it's a lot mean than you
Hmm.
expect it to be, or
Hmm.
not fair. But yeah, it's once you succeed, you can pave the way for the people who come after you, and to have it a little bit easier. Because that's what we do. Like what I mean, like the point of everyone going through is, I don't want everyone to start where I started. I want people to start further than where I've started, kind of thing. So we have like that. That's the duty we have to ourselves and our community as well. I think that's everything I have in terms of advice. Yeah, and also don't drink too much coffee. In my undergrad, one day I had like 7, 8 coffees just because I had an exam that I need
Yeah.
to study for, and just 8 coffees is too much, and I ended up studying for a different exam. It was that day. It was just, I remember to this day because it was a big mess. Not too much coffee. Maximum 2 coffees a day. Anything more is completely unnecessary.
Yes.
All right.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you so
Uh,
much for sharing and giving us some amazing and powerful advice.
uh,
Again, thank you so much for your time, and I wish you all the best wishes in the world.
thank you, and take care there, and Vietnam. Maybe and get back safely.
Yeah.
And what degree are you doing?
I'm currently doing a master degree of social work.
Nice. Well
Yes.
done.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your time.